Today's topic is mapping enterprise customer journeys, and it's going to be co-led by Percy Rose, who some of you might have met already. He's a regular here. Let me just take it off of share for a second, and just Percy, why don't you just say hi real quick? Not everybody necessarily knows you, and maybe you can just share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Percy Rose. I live in Portland, Oregon. I'm the head of digital customer success at Hewlett Packard Enterprise. And customer journey mapping is how I started in CS. I became an expert at journey mapping and done a lot of speaking at conferences about it, and happy to share a little bit about it with you today.
Awesome. And when we were discussing this, we sort of dug in a little bit and realized that this is very specifically enterprise. It's very high touch. So if you are in a digital motion, or if you have several different motions, you might think about it a little bit differently, but there's so many good nuggets in here. And so we'll talk about some of those other things broadly, but there's also some really great things to think about, and you can apply to, digital and middle market accounts as well. So let me get back to it and we'll dig in. Yay. Okay. So let's see. What we want to cover here is just generally first, what is a customer journey map? Why would you care about a customer journey map? What are the benefits of it, and when you use it, and some of the primary components, and how an enterprise journey map might be different. How many folks, raise your hand, how many folks have journey maps for your CS programs? Okay, so we have some folks. And are you using them, or do they sort of collect dust? Keep your hand up if you're using it. Collect dust, put your hand down. Most people, it's collecting dust,
Right.
so if you're actually using it, then that's pretty awesome. So I would hope then through our conversation today, then you'll be contributing some ideas and thoughts on customer journey maps. All right, let's dig in a little bit. I'm going to hand it over to you, Percy. Tell me a little bit about your journey map and how you approach it.
Yeah, so basically, just to get a bit of grounding so everyone's on the same page of what is a customer journey map. If you haven't seen any, or on the left is a bit of an example of what one could look like, but it's essentially laying out what are the different steps that your customer will go through in the life cycle in their engagement with you as a vendor, as a supplier, or something like that. So ideally, it would start from when the customer is first going through discovery. They're looking for different vendors that can solve their need. And then it would take it all the way to, they've learned about your company, they've decided to purchase from your company, they've onboarded, they've adopted the solution, they've tried to optimize the solution, and finally they come to a decision where they're trying to determine if they want to continue doing business with you. So they'll renew or expand business, right? So it's a visual representation of what are those steps. Then also in this map, it's going to give you a holistic view of what is their experience going through those steps, right? Because not all of those steps are going to be smooth or seamless for that customer. Maybe your onboarding is going to be a critical piece, a critical step where customers have a poor experience, and that may make a huge difference on deciding, should I continue doing business with you or not? Or the adoption is going to be low. That means they'll have a poor experience, and that may be a predictor of them churning in the end, right? So your journey map, as you lay it out, you want to know first and foremost, what is my current customer experience, right? Where are the areas where we're strong, and where are the areas where we have gaps, which may put us at risk of a customer continuing to do business with us? And then finally, or just one
Yeah.
last point on this one, and essentially it serves as your tool to optimize. Once you've laid it out and you said, okay, these are the challenges, then you can know, okay, we have a problem in onboarding, for example, or we have a problem with the optimize phase. These are the two areas giving us the biggest challenges, and it's going to hurt us when a customer decides to renew or expand. So it'll give you an area, it give you a map to determine this is where we need to put emphasis and investment on as a company to go off and improve it. So next slide.
All right. And, you know, something too that I would just say is a lot of times when you start working on a journey map, you go into idealist mode and you start to think about, oh, but we're going to change this. Or, oh, you know, we're going to do that starting next month. Or, oh, you know, this is the best practice way. It's not how we all do it, but this is the best practice way. And so you'll start to fill in, you know, when you're getting into the specifics and filling in your journey map, you start to think about like, oh, these are the things that we're going to do.
Right.
Hold off on that and instead just focus on what do you actually do. Now, the other thing, and I say when I say what you actually do, the other thing I should mention is it needs to be from the customer perspective, right? A journey map is the customer's journey. And the things that you do internally, those are your playbooks. Those are not the customer journey. They don't know that you go and type it in over here, that you talk to 6 different departments or any of those things. That's not the customer's experience. The
Right.
customer's experience might be that they have to go and talk to 6 different departments. And if you have that worked in as part of their process that's required, well, then you should probably put that in, like they must go and consult with legal or something like that, right? So just keep in mind though, to really understand what that customer experience is like, you've got to go and step over into their shoes.
Right.
All right.
Okay. So, and maybe one last point on that, what we typically do is, to Jan's point, we want to know what is the current experience? What is the customer actually going through, right? And that'll be your stake in the ground. And then you might define a future state map, right? Okay, here's where we are today with, I don't know, and we have a problem with onboarding and adoption. Now let's define a future state map of where we want to go, right? What would we want our customers to experience? And that basically will allow you to have an overarching framework of the work that needs to be done over time. And then you can develop programs and so on, improve your playbooks, et cetera. So at the end of the day, what are the benefits of doing a customer journey map? You're going to get a better understanding of the customer. Clearly, that's one of the key points of emphasis here, right? You're going to understand what are the key interaction areas, and then next you're going to understand what are their pain points and opportunities to improve, right? Because at the end of the day, and this is, I would say my point on why so many customer journey maps sit on the shelf is because it's not there is no bottom line goal. People think often a customer journey map is, let me just put the steps of the customer down. They do this, they do this, they do this. Okay, a customer journey map is done. Actually, what, in my view, what you want to do is you want to understand what is our ability to retain that customer. And if we're at 80% retention rate or 90% retention rate, we want to get it to 95% retention rate. Then what are the areas in the journey that are keeping us from getting there? Okay, the onboarding is a huge pain point. Customers are deciding, I'm never going through this again with this company. So when it comes time to renew, they're gone, right? And so your journey is going to allow you to see the main areas of contention, and then you can actually start doing things to improve it and give yourself a much better chance at improving retention. And so identifying pain points and opportunities for improvement. Third, you want to make it measurable. Again, we don't want to just put journey maps that are all about feelings, because that's what a lot of journey maps have as well. They'll just give you a smiley face and a frowny face, and they say, okay, I've done the map. Well, you've got to put qualitative and quantitative data in your map, I think, if you want to make it impactful. So we have onboarding that's taking 100 days today. Our goal is to get it down to 25. We believe that if we get it down to 25 days, it's going to make it an amazing experience for our customers. So that's the goal, right? That's what our future state map will show. You want to make this measurable. And then finally, a really good map with qualitative and quantitative data is going to help you enhance customer retention. As you're making these changes, you're going to be able to look at this and saying, okay, what is making the biggest difference to a customer deciding to continue doing business? At the end of the day, that's the bottom line. Are they staying with us or not? They can fill out 1 million surveys. They can pat us on the back and give us great CSAT ratings. But the bottom line is, did you retain the customer or not? And your map should really highlight what's going to make the biggest difference.
Right. And so when you think about it, if you understand what the different phases are in the customer's journey, and we can kind of give you some idea of one version of how Percy's built a customer journey. But if you understand what the different phases are, then you're going to be able to say what needs to be achieved during this period. How do I know in what timeline when they're off track versus when they're successful? And what are some of the key things that need to happen, right? And if you understand what needs to happen to make a customer successful, then you know if that customer journey is going to keep them on track or if they're off track. That's the whole point
Right.
there.
And I know this is really small and we don't have to spend too much time on it.
But people have links to it, so they can look at it in a bigger
you have
format.
links to it.
Yeah.
But this just shows where in our as is journey map, when we created it, where in the green, the experience was positive, and then much of the experience was a little bit up and down, more leaning towards the negative in specific areas. So we immediately knew.
So yeah, let's
created a
walk
plan.
through this a little bit because this is a
Okay.
very different version of a customer journey map than most people see, I think.
Okay.
So what's this up on top?
Yeah, could you make it a little bit bigger?
Let me see
just
if I can. Does that help?
Okay, yeah, we'll just go with this. So the first, the first thing, and you'll have a own copy. The
Yeah.
first thing I want to do is identify personas and outcomes, and we're going to actually have a deep dive session on personas and outcomes next week. But that's really the anchor of this.
That's
map.
what you have here up on the top.
That's
as a
what we
point
have
of
on the top.
reference.
So I have two
Okay.
personas. I
Okay.
have two personas. One is
And this is a persona here, and that's a persona there.
right.
And these are all enterprise customers that you're talking
Yes.
about here.
These are
But
enterprise
within the
customers.
enterprise customer journey, there's various different personas that
Right.
you're looking at. So like,
That's right.
what does that sound like tangibly? Like, what would be an example?
An example of an enterprise customer persona, I'm in IT, right? And so basically with these two, I have someone who is like, say, director level. They're managing on a day-to-day basis. The person on the right, Mira, is managing the day-to-day data center activities, right?
Okay.
Mira is our main influencer.
Okay, so your main point of contact then.
Our main point of contact. And then her boss is Travis, is the CIO, CTO, who is an executive level. And what you see, here, and it's very small, we have sliders, which basically identify these are the outcomes that are most important to Mira and most important to Travis. They want different things, right?
So that's what you have under here is like a slider.
That's what I have is outcomes. Right. So Mira cares about
and we're going to cover that next week, but okay. So Trevor has a question.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'm driving, so it's easier for me to talk. As someone who kind of lives in data hell right now, I'm curious, you have the customer journey sort of mapped out. What tools are, these different metrics that you're trying to tighten up tracked in? Is it like the CRM or something else? And follow-up question, if it is tracked somewhere, like how do you sort of start tightening up? Like, for instance, you mentioned implementation, like you have the tool track, okay, how long does it take a customer to get through? Maybe at the end of the renewal period, you say, okay, I want to run a report on how many customers churned this year, and I want to correlate that to how long their onboarding took, something like that.
Well, part of it, Trevor, is which data are you talking about and where does it live? Because you know, and where are you housing the data? So if you're looking at how long it takes for someone to get through onboarding, that depends on where you keep that data that you would be tracking and measuring that.
Right.
It might be something that you keep in your CRM, or it might be in, like, if you're using something like Asana or Monday, it might live over there, right?
Right.
So that's part of the answer. What were you going
Yeah.
to say, Percy?
Yeah, and for us, I mean, it's a massive organization, and this journey is end to end. We're dealing with marketing, we're dealing with pre-sales, we're dealing with sales, we're dealing with delivery, and unfortunately, each organization has their own systems, and so we mapped out what is the end-to-end customer flow, and then we went to those different organizations to talk about, okay, what are the key metrics that would really make sense to plug into this journey. So it's a lot of cross company collaboration to put something
Okay.
like this together.
And then the reason why then you have, like, here's a phase of
Yeah.
the journey, and here's this line that's up here and then lower, then,
Yeah.
you know, down lower, and then up higher, down lower. And
Mhm.
what that means is that's sort of a read of where this
Customer
persona
relations.
is, you know, or this, in this case, this person, because this is an enterprise company that you're mapping specifically for what
Right.
what this company's journey is, because it's
Right.
enterprise, it's not overall,
And then how
and
they're experiencing us.
how their experience is. So this is positive. This is an area that needs help. Now, why is it low, but there's a heart?
The hearts represent the moments that have a significant difference on a customer determining, should I renew with you or not? So we
Okay, and
found
what's
that
the exclamation mark?
it's a key friction point. That was
Ah.
core experience as a friction point, but it didn't have the biggest difference on a decision to renew.
Okay, and then this clock is showing that
The
it took
time.
longer than expected.
Exactly.
Okay, all right. And we need to go through quickly the 5 primary components, but first, let's ask Randall. What's your question, Randall?
So how does this play into your customer, health score? Meaning that you obviously know what your customer's ideal state is, right, from a journey perspective,
Mhm.
and then you obviously are trying to get to, let's say, increasing retention,
Yeah.
right? You want to determine, are your customers actually, retaining? How do they play together? I guess that's the question.
Yeah. So I do a journey map as a baseline and then identify, I mean, your health score you're concerned with in a post-sales, typically adoption and optimize. So I have 2 phases here, adopt and optimize. And I understand that, okay, and optimize, for example, is the worst part of the experience. So I have to first think, okay, what does the customer feel like they're missing? And if they're missing X, Y, and Z, I'm going to put that into a scorecard to track and put it as a part of my health score, right? Because if I want to improve on that optimized phase, the negativity I see there, I'm going to have to put this somehow in a dashboard. And, the complaint here from the customer was that we don't feel that you guide us in achieving our outcomes, right? I care about sustainability. No one guides me on how to achieve sustainability. So I have to go and put it in a dashboard and say, we need to track sustainability. And are they doing these things which make a customer successful to be able to achieve the outcome?
Okay,
Does that
and
make sense?
also then here you can see in this adoption phase, it wasn't very strong to begin with.
Right.
And since adoption phase wasn't very strong,
The optimize, yeah,
it's not surprising that optimization is really weak, as even
exactly.
more so.
Exactly.
Okay, so Kathy, can I just wait 1 second? Can we go through this a little bit and then we'll get back to you? And then we'll go to breakouts. Okay.
So these are just essentially 5 sections of what you saw in the previous slide. Personas and outcomes is the anchor, in my opinion, of any map, right? You have
For
to
an enterprise
determine,
customer journey map.
right, for enterprise customer journey, but you also can have personas for small and medium business as well. they're
Mhm.
going to be different. They're going to be
Mhm.
very different than enterprise customer,
Mhm.
right? But
And they may not be actual people.
right,
They
it
might
may
be
not
more
be
of a
actual people, it may be
composite as
groups and
opposed
so on.
to Joanne.
Exactly. And so, but you have to ultimately understand what is your customer trying to achieve, right? They're not just buying your software to get tactical advice on how you click on this screen and so forth and so on. So outcomes, and we have an outcome framework that we use, and I'll talk about that next week, that I think, hopefully each of you can use it if, I believe outcome frameworks are a really big part of customer success. So personas and outcomes is one section of the map, as you've seen. Secondly, the journey phases, as I talked about, starting out with a discovery phase, then like purchasing, etc., all the way to renewal. You're going to lay out what are the phases the customer goes through. Then we want to put quantitative data, and we put KPIs in our journey maps, right? And so you don't want to just go by feeling. You want to validate that with numbers, because that's how you're going to get buy-in from your executive leadership team. 4 is the qualitative part, the sentiment analysis, as we were pointing out, the up and down heat map. And then the fifth, competitive benchmarking. It's hard to get. You don't absolutely have to have that in the journey map, but we found that putting competitive benchmarking was a really big value add and so we were able to show, okay, here's how we rank against a Dell or a Lenovo or a Google or or Microsoft, right? And that added a lot of weight to our journey maps. It really helped our senior leadership take notice. So those are the 5 components that you would find on let's say, an enterprise
And something
journey map.
like this, right? And just
Yeah.
keep in mind, there's various different slides here that go into it in more detail, right? But
What
that's,
guides benchmarking? I just saw a question.
Yeah.
What guides benchmarking? We used different industry services that helped us with that. We subscribe to.
all right, Kathy, what question did you have?
I was wondering, in the journey map, you're putting stuff in after, say, the customers had a good experience or a bad experience, and then you had the green and the orangey color.
Uh-huh.
But do you do anything before that, like maybe in the handoff, where the customer said, for example, I need to get everybody up to speed in a month, where you do predictive analysis of where you need to be really paying attention to what the customer is going to be needing, so you can get, ahead of it and, say, oh God, we're not prepared to get them up to speed in a month. We have to do something before they.
Well, no, this is really just focused. We have honestly, we go and speak to a lot of internal teams, and the internal teams will tell you, oh, the customer will want this. We should do this X, Y, and Z. And there are a lot of thoughts on what we should do. But we kind of put that aside, and we do customer interviews. For this map, we did probably about 50 customer interviews and rationalize that information into this one map. And we purely want to listen to what the customer is telling us and map out their existing experience. And then we go from there.
Well, but to be sure that this is the result of having already understood what the different phases are, what kinds of things they should be doing. This is a journey map that is a result of incorporating voice of the customer, right? Is that what you're
Right. I mean,
basically
this
saying?
is right. This is not a startup, I guess you could say.
Well,
So,
no, but I mean, like,
there's-
this is because it shows the results of how they've already experienced it.
yes, how they've already experienced.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is after getting feedback.
Right.
Otherwise, there are, and there's other version and things that we'll go through next week that it's like gets into digging into more specifically what steps they go through. But this is sort of a way to measure what, how a customer has experienced the journey working with
you.
the customer. Okay. And so then just going back to the questions that we're going to have for the breakout, What personas are there in your customers' companies? And if you're in between roles, you can reflect on past companies or target companies. So maybe you're working with SMB, or maybe you're working with mid-market, maybe you are working with enterprise. What types of personas are you working with? What does your decision maker look like, or what do your champions look like? And, are they technical, or are they not technical at all? Some of those kinds of attributes. And then how have you, or could you use a customer journey map to have an impact on your customers and your CS program? So those are the two questions. Here is sort of a lightning round of intros that you have. Don't forget to get the link for the to take the notes. And does everybody have the links? Any other questions? We're totally late on going out to our breakout rooms again. All right. Okay, so I'll bring you back in 17 minutes. Any thoughts on journey mapping? And John?
Part of our conversation was interesting, of talking about personas and how you incorporate the different levels of like influencer, the buyer, the decision maker, and those buyer personas, as opposed to kind of user personas, and how those combine. I think it definitely depends on the product that you're referencing.
Yeah, and maybe you would even include different things in the journey as a result of considering those personas, right? Gets you thinking.
Yeah. I mean, Percy said it loud. It's most important to have the influence, the buyer, like in their, and the influencer, like where they are with the journey, because they're the one paying the money.
Absolutely. And John Gallagher, you had your hand up, and then I want to go to Randall and Kristen.
I was just reacting with some celebrations. Group 5, we were a bunch of folks varying with experience in CS. And so it was cool to hear how different our entry point was to the conversation, and particularly depending on the product and the industry, how approach would shift and pivot. Interesting.
Did you notice something in particular that surprised you in the different perspectives?
I think there was a strong group of like healthcare focus as well as technical. And then depending on if you were joining from a really large organization that was serving enterprise, or if you're an early stage startup, your responsibilities with CS could kind of blend with the whole go-to-market function, whether you're in marketing, closing contracts, or kind of in that in between of CS versus account manager for expansion.
Interesting. Cool. All right, Randall.
So we talk about the customer journey, right? And trying to follow through the journey they're taking. The questions that came up in our discussion was, is there anywhere in the journey mapping you define the customer like problem or mission that they're trying to achieve, so that as you're going through that map, you can see that if they're achieving it? Maybe I missed it, or I didn't see it noted on there. That was one question I had, is where that discussion happens, to know if it's achieving the objective. So if it minimizes that churn, or you're increasing retention, because you can see that journey flowing through that process.
Percy?
Yeah, if you look at the map, that's why the outcomes are at the most important anchor. Those personas, if you look at the map, the outcomes that they care about most are at the top. And then basically the map should be viewed as knowing that this is what they care about, this is how they experience working with us. So are they, the map is answering, are they getting and achieving the outcome that they expect working with HPE, right? And so those negative dips in the experience are basically answering it's basically saying, no, they're not getting what they expect.
Okay, thank you.
And so just to, before we move on from that, and just looking at it then, are you talking about here, oh, this is a 200, so it's kind of, you talking about here at the top, or where are you?
At the, if you go to the very top.
The very top.
Yes, so Mira, if you go to the right,
Okay.
so we
Ouch.
say a little bit about what Mira cares about. She manages the data center, and you see
Mhm.
these sliders here. Mira cares
Okay.
mostly about maximizing on operational performance. That's highest on her list, right? And so I know that if we're not through the journey, giving her, providing efficiencies in maximizing the operational performance, it's going to be a poor experience for her, right?
Okay, but there isn't anywhere here in the journey
It doesn't
where
specifically, well,
where
it
it's specific.
kind of, you can look at the comments in detail. She'll voice disappointment that I'm not being guided on maximizing
Mhm.
operational efficiency. So the comments might add a little bit of color there
Okay,
for you, but
okay.
yeah,
But at that higher level, that's where you're sort of thinking about it. Got it.
yeah.
Kristen, what kinds of things were you discussing in your group?
Yeah, there was I was with Pam and Daniel, and we came up with a whole bunch of stuff, but there were
Nice.
two main key takeaways that I think were really cool to talk about with customer journeys. And the first one is validation. Like if you go through your customer journey, you can often use it to validate if your personas are right or not. You can also use it to validate if your product is actually doing what you think it's actually doing for your customers or not. The second thing is that customer journeys are a great way to get alignment across your company and to help people understand that your transitions or your handoffs are part of the customer journey and incredibly important to whether or not your customer can be successful. And then the last thing that I brought up was that usually there's a one phase that gets left out of customer journeys a lot, and that's the maturation phase. Maturity in the use of a project can be so important for embedding a product into a company, especially an enterprise company, that sometimes you need like a multi-year customer journey to be able to
Yep.
get that phase into the customer journey.
Right. You're kind of referring more to like a customer life cycle and what it might look like in their first year or their second year or plus years, things like that. Yeah. Shoot. And somebody just had their hand up and I don't know who it was because they took it down.
Jen, I think I'm just throwing you through a loop. I tend to use a lot of reactions. I was
Oh,
just
okay. That's quite all right. It's quite all right. It's lovely if you have lots of reactions. And you took a lot of detailed notes here, Pam, Kristen, Daniel. So this is great. There's a wealth of knowledge here in these notes.
Kristen did it. She's a rock star.
All right, rock star Kristen. Fran.
I would just say that I thought it was interesting that in our group, two of us, Valeria and I, both my recent experience and her current experiences with SMB customers who don't want to hear from us. Like they don't listen, period. In fact, I was telling her how excited I was, telling my group how excited I was to get back to enterprise, because when customers are investing more money, I believe, well, and I also think enterprise customers are usually a little more sophisticated. Nothing against SMB, but you know, when you're paying $50 or $100 a month, it's a lot different than if you're paying, you know, thousands and thousands of dollars. And those customers are going to look for your expertise a little more. But I actually had a quick question for Percy too. I was thinking, when we were looking at the slide that shows the higher and lower satisfaction levels, would you not, where you see the dissatisfaction, would you then step back and introduce in the adoption phase? And you didn't mention this, so I was curious, wouldn't that be where you would introduce more of the guidance for optimization to keep that from dipping down as they go on?
100%. So what we didn't
what I
show is
figured.
the 2B journey map where we defined what needs to happen differently, right? So there are things that have to now in the future happen in the onboarding phase that's going to set them up for success to have a better optimization phase. So yes.
Cool. That's what I figured. We didn't
Yeah.
get to it. So I look forward to seeing the slides. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, don't forget, they're in Slack to download, or you'll find them in the chat. So, all right. Well, we've gone over, and I really appreciate everyone sticking around. If there's another comment or burning, comment or question, please speak now. Otherwise, we're going to see you next week, and otherwise in the ether and in the community in between time. Any other
Great.
thoughts? Yeah.
Great conversation. Thank you so much.
Oh, I'm so glad.
you.
Yeah. If there's it looks like there's a lot of great notes in here. If there's anything else we should point out before we go, or we good? Oh, fantastic.
I'm available if anyone has any detailed follow-up, I'm happy to talk about this anytime.
He's in the community.
Yep,
Thank you.
in the community too.
All right. Awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. See you next time. We'll be talking about personas and outcomes. So we'll be extending this. Then the next time we'll be meeting with Carly Agar, and she's going to be talking about tying metrics and your numbers to business metrics. And then after that, we're going to, Divya is going to help us look at building custom GPTs. And that's going to be in February, and we're going to have a new way to sign up. It's going to be through Zoom somehow, which I haven't worked out yet, but it's going to be awesome. And it's going to be with our website that's almost launched, but not live yet. And it's going to be fantastic. So if you're on the edge of your seat, so am I. Thanks a lot. See you
Thanks, bye.
soon.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.